Hello, welcome back to the Prestige TV podcast feed. I'm Joanna Robinson.
I'm Rob Mahoney.
And I believe we are here today to issue an apology to the pigeon community, Rob Mahoney.
Are we, though?
Are we?
Nah.
If you did not hear earlier this week in the podcast episode we did about the Netflix series The Beast in Me, Rob dropped some inaccurate pigeon facts on the pod. So, Mr. Burger Kebab himself, would you like to answer for your crimes?
You know, sometimes we swing and miss. Sometimes we think that what seems to be a shiny patch on a pigeon is oil, when in fact it is natural iridescence. So I salute the pigeons and all the shiny work that they're doing. I happen to be wrong on this one, but I maintain that a pigeon is not a spectacular bird that is worth doodling in your little birding journal.
Okay, great. He's just doubling down on his pigeon slander. Okay,
this is what we do in 2025, Joe.
We're here to talk about Pluribus episode 4, titled Please Carol, written by Alison Tatlock and directed by Zetna Fuentes. And how did you like this episode, Rob Mahoney?
I liked it. Yeah. I mean, I think we're kind of moving the chains at this point, right? The plot is starting to click into place. I would say this is the episode where Carol sort of starts to take control or attempt to of her circumstances, which is exciting. But it's not like the most action-packed episode I've ever seen.
I think it's interesting because one of the responses we started getting from listeners was, why isn't Carol asking more questions, or why isn't she trying, harder to figure out an answer and stuff like that? So I think, this week.
To be fair, she spent almost all of episode 2 asking lots of questions.
I agree. But I think
and is also grieving her wife. So
Rob, you and I agree. And I would say the grief continues inside of this episode, but
certainly
there's a lot of other things going on. I do want to zoom through some listener stuff.
Please.
I will say last week we decided to move sort of like, what does this show remind me of corner to this week's episode. And I will say next week I'm going to get to a lot of the sports related emails we got, because I do want to serve the Ringer audience.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to move that to next week just because we have plenty to get through this week. But
on that note, Joe, I just want to say the golfers, you've been heard. You've been heard, absolutely. We get it. We understand your perspective, although do we? But also keep them coming. PrestigeTV@Spotify.com and lickingthedonut@gmail.com.
I thought some of the golfer emails were actually really good. First of all, our listener, Ollie, I just like the way he phrased this. He said, what he would do if he had access to the hive mind. He said, I would get them to remake the Star Wars trilogy series until I liked it. And that was the whole email. And I just had this vision of Ollie with a zombified Oscar Isaac at his disposal. And he's just like, again. Give me the Poe Dameron story I want. I don't know.
Just really the full David Fincher treatment. Yeah. Take number 183.
Exactly. Our listener Morgan was saying that we got a lot of answers to sort of what would be under your very special cloche that the hive mind would leave at your front doorstep. A lot of highbrow, lovely answers. And then Morgan is like, Pop-Tarts and Hot Pockets or honey butter chicken biscuit. So I guess my question to you, Rob Mahoney, foodie extraordinaire, my favorite foodie, what trash food would entice you under a cloche on your doorstep?
First of all, I want to say this. The implication on your part that a honey butter chicken biscuit is trash food is insulting to my culture, and I won't accept it.
Okay.
You're just going to have to own that one. But along those lines, look, there's no question where my allegiances lie, and it would be
a Whataburger.
It would definitely be Whataburger of some variety. I think I would not go honey butter chicken biscuit, but honey barbecue chicken strip sandwich. It's dear relative, the cousin of the family. Just a delightful way to welcome your hive mind apocalypse, for sure.
I'm really upset with myself because I was like, wow, I wonder what Rob is going to say. And then he started talking. I was like, of course it's Whataburger. Yeah. Of course it is.
But where are you going, Joe? What's under your
what's under my
quote
cloche?
Unquote trash food cloche?
Trash cloche. Okay. The true honest heart of me.
That's what we're here for.
Says it's a spicy crispy chicken sandwich from Jack in the Box. That's the go-to.
I mean, at least you're a step above Jack in the Box tacos. You're not going full bottom of the dumpster, just mid-level dumpster.
I for some reason, I do not enjoy a beef product from a fast food joint, and I always go chicken sando. That's always my go-to. So.
Safer for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Rob, would you also like to answer for your crimes to the Afghan community? Because we got many emails from listeners about the use of the Afghan. Rob was questioning, why would you have a blanket that has so many holes in it, and fired up the Afghan community, I should say. And by Afghan community, I mean blanket lovers. And I should say, we got many, many answers. A lot of them had to do with like weighted, the feeling of the weight on you while still having airflow. But we got like a scientific answer from our listener Bernard about the way in which hot air, the sort of the weave of the Afghan traps the hot air in some way. Really peculiar science. What a mystery to me, generally. And then last but not least, before we get to sort of like the other show comps, we got one more submission for the unhive mind name, the Carols and the Monusnos of this world. Our listener Alex wrote in last week, but I think I missed the email. But our listener Laura wrote in this week with the subject line "Stay unlicked, cabrones" of her email. So it might be Laura, I don't know. And she suggested the unlicked as for Carol, for Monusnos, et cetera, et cetera. So I really like that, the unlicked. You know what I mean?
It is good. I just think that there's lots of other unlicked people out there. You know, if many of them were infected via chemtrail, can we all lump them into a licking bucket?
They were metaphorically licked by
they certainly were.
This alien plot. You know what I mean? So, okay. On the sort of other show comps, I should say we got a lot of people shouting out the Borg from Star Trek. We got a lot of people shouting out The Good Place. I know you wanted to talk about a specific X-Files episode, Rob. Do you want to mention that?
Oh, yeah. The season 7 episode in which Mulder gets a genie lamp. I would butcher the title of the episode if I tried to pronounce it, so I simply will not. But it falls into this almost like monkey's paw tradition of you ask for a thing, but you have to overly specify the parameters or else you might accidentally wipe out all of mankind kind of wish fulfillment. And I would say this show is more in the aftermath of that. It's like, okay, mankind has already been sort of wiped out, and now you have the empty expanse of America and the world as your playground. But like, what are you going to do with all that?
But I think also like asking for a hand grenade and maybe having to deeply specify like A, I was being sarcastic, but B, also don't give me a live hand grenade. I don't know.
But also of note about that X-Files episode, it immediately sprang to mind for me after you and I talked about episodes 1 and 2 of Pluribus. And I looked it up, and of course, written and directed by Vince Gilligan. So, you know, the man has interests.
On this week's episode, this is just like a perfect episode for freeze frame Mahoney. We get some whiteboard writing, and one of the rules that Carol writes down about the hive mind is can't hurt a fly. And one of our listeners, Jessica,
asterisk allegedly,
one of our listeners, Jessica, a couple weeks ago mentioned Westworld, which is the sort of like I wouldn't hurt a fly, Evan Rachel Wood moment of the Westworld pilot where she then slaps a fly on the side of her like neck is pretty phenomenal. Romancing the Stone was brought up. I don't know if you're a Romancing the Stone fan, Rob Mahoney.
What's the comp on Romancing the Stone?
Kathleen Turner plays Joan Wilder, who is a romance novelist. And it's just sort of like the plot of your book becomes the life you're living to a certain degree. There is a sexy pirate lady who looks just like the romance, figure that you've been writing all these years. So I liked that comp as well.
It's been a minute for me. I need to revisit it for sure. I have to say the Sandra Bullock like rip-off attempted riff on that idea. The Lost City, not as successful.
Not as great, no.
A little lame, unfortunately.
Romancing the Stone, absolute classic, honestly. Craig suggested The Matrix, and I think The Matrix is interesting. Well, a couple people mentioned The Matrix, but I think The Matrix is most interesting because I was thinking about Joe Pantoliano's character from the first Matrix, Cypher, and how much he would just be begging to join the collective. He's
only so long as they have the stakes.
They gotta have the stakes, yeah.
That guy wants his red meat, and as soon as it's gone, what is there for him?
Exactly. And last but not least, I'll just mention we got several Doctor Who comps. Doctor Who is a great comp for what's going on here, of course. And then Brave New World was something that came up for a lot of people. So those are just merely some of the comps that were sent our way. Surely there are plenty more. Keep them coming, lickingthedonut@gmail.com. We still got hundreds of emails this week. They didn't trickle off. So thank you for your emails. They're wonderful.
I would say the other one, Joe, that's been coming up a lot in the emails, and also just anecdotally watching the show, like The Good Place is all over here.
Oh yeah, I mentioned at the top just like quickly.
I know we've talked about it before, and like especially the philosophical implications of episode 2. But now that we are in full on like helpful Janet, get me heroin mode of this show, like we're really in it.
Absolutely. Let's start in Paraguay, and I should say, we got an email from a listener, John, who's, I'm just going to call our man in Paraguay, who just like sort of reported earlier on the previous Manusos call when we were only on the other side of it. And he was like, that guy sounds Colombian to me. Fun fact, because the actor is Colombian, they have decided to make that character Colombian. In the official podcast, they're like, he's Colombian, but he lives in Paraguay. They like put a like very specific Colombian game in the set of like where he lives and stuff like that. So if you're like, and the reason they did that is because he's like, I can't do the Paraguay. It's very specific and I can't do it. And so they're like, okay, we'll make you Colombian. Let's just easy peasy do that. But I thought that was really interesting. John, if you want to continue to give us dispatches from Paraguay, we would love to hear them.
I actually heard a very similar story, Joe, recently. I was watching a Matthew Reese interview to prepare for our Beast and Me pod, where he was talking about an episode of Columbo that he did early in his career, where he was asked to flip accents, and it was simply like, but what if we just made you, a man with a Welsh accent instead? Like, what if we just make this as simple Welsh for you as possible?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we get this extended sequence at the beginning with Manusnos in Paraguay. We didn't get a clock. We're just here with him. He's checking radio frequencies. How did all of this work for you, Rob Mahoney, as a character intro?
I mean, not to be the guy who just watched Lost recently, but I can't watch these sorts of introductions anymore and not think of that very like process-oriented guy in quarantine, sort of like methodical introduction.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I mean, we learn a lot about this character with very little dialogue. In that vein, I was struck by the silence of this sequence kind of juxtaposed with the silence of the hive mind, right? Like we see dozens of people wordlessly stocking Sprout shelves, and it is like a system, right? A system in action and like fully actualized to its complete capability of what human beings are like even capable of imagining in terms of their ability to work together in this context, like logistically. And then here's a guy who in his silence is just like painfully alone and quite principled in what he is willing to do to engage with these quote unquote humans, quote unquote aliens, whatever they are or not.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it was so alarming, especially coming from Carol's world where she is talking to herself, talking to Zosha, asking questions. Like she's even more integrated in this circumstance than he is.
Exactly.
And this man is like well and truly alone.
Here's like, I think it's so interesting because Carol's like, I am so doing it on my own. I am so independent. But as we mentioned, the Sprout stocking sequence last week was like so laughable. And then you compare her illusion of independence to Manusnos here, who is like the cleverness of there's a single fly.
Mm-hmm.
And that fly lets him know there's organic material left in a tin that he put. And he is so desperate that he will follow the fly to the lid of the can and then lick it. And we'll get to the dog food in a second. But like that lets us know so much about how he's deciding to live his life here and how fiercely independent he has decided to be. I don't know why he is weighing tape and the locks that he has, but that seems to be one of the, right? It's like, because it seems to be like 20 grams, like he's weighing it. I don't know. Anyway, he's taking stock. He's got tape to put cardboard on all the windows. He's got locks because he's locking all the gates, but also breaking locks on the storage units, et cetera, et cetera.
But leaving a polite note.
Leaving a very polite note.
He is a rule follower at his core.
I just thought it was interesting because we got several emails about this, one specifically from our listener, Jennifer, about Carol versus the other unlicked that she met in episode 2. And this idea, we had talked about it a little bit, but this idea of like rugged American individualism. Is this show a critique of that? Are the other unlicked people from communities, cultures where they value community and more than America does or something like that? But then we meet, any listeners in Paraguay who want to let us know, tell
Please.
me. But like, I have not ever heard the phrase rugged individualists of Paraguay or Colombia for that matter. So like, let me know if I'm missing something. But like, I think having him be like a more extreme example of Carol just sort of undermines that idea that like we're talking about something very specifically American. There are things about Carol that are very specifically American.
Definitely.
But I think this idea of like, I don't want to join your zombie horde that is infected by an alien virus. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are like, what's wrong with Carol? I'm like, what's wrong with you that you think something's wrong with Carol? But anyway, that's fine. But so what do you think about adding Manusnos as an even more extreme example into the mix?
Well, I love that it adds a complexity to that sort of balance that you're talking about, where it's almost not like rugged American individualism versus the collectivism of other nations, but there are people all around the world who are skeptical of authority, who are skeptical of specifically this very like, I am telling you how to live your life and that I know what is best for you kind of authority. Mm-hmm. That tact is taken by, dictators the world over, by drug cartels, by people offering quote unquote protections. Like it's totally understandable to me that someone anywhere in the world could want to batten down the hatches and lock themselves into a storage facility office and say, you know what, like I'm not buying what you're selling. And ultimately like that he's almost starving. Like, right. He is down to the dog food and the sugar packets portion of his diet.
Yeah.
And yet he's still flipping over the cloche plate. Like he still wants no part of any of that because to him, clearly this sort of independence is still more valuable.
Something I loved about that sequence that they talked about on the official pod was that, watching him eat that dog food, it's all down to his performance. I mean, the dog food looks disgusting and anyone who's ever fed a pet wet food like knows that it smells a very particular way that I am not fond of personally.
I think I would go kibble in this circumstance. If I had the
opportunity,
pet food shelves at my disposal on my last food, I think I'm going kibble.
Vince Gilligan said something about how the fact that like they had the dog food and he's like, no, we need to make it more disgusting. It needs to glisten more, and they had to like add like congealed broth to it or whatever. But it's down to this guy's performance.
Yeah.
To make us really feel this. So Carlos Manuel Vesca, who goes by Vesca, like his revulsion really sells it. But what I loved that they talked about in the official pod was like there's also this stoicism to him of like, I'm just going to do it. And that's not a show for anyone because there's literally no one there. So it's just for himself that he's like, I'm just going to do it. This is what I'm going to do. And I thought that was a really revealing, interesting character moment, And
it's what makes him such a good counterpart potentially for Carol too, right? Like these are two people who are staunchly resisting whatever this kind of invasion or takeover is. But in his case, like being starving in principle, these are two great tastes that taste great together, right? These things do kind of come in tandem. And so the idea that he is having this stiff upper lip, even for himself, I agree with you. Great character moment, really nice introduction, but they're really slow rolling him into the story. I mean, we see the other side of his phone conversation with Carol, Cabron and all. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, like, when is he going to get into our main action? I'm curious to see.
I know. Like, there's this line that Carol has later when she's doing her investigation where she says something like, can one person do it? Can one person reverse the hive mind epidemic? And obviously...
Well, no, there's two keys and you have to turn them simultaneously,
right. So you need a Manusnos, I'm just saying, So... last but not least, two things. I don't know what he's doing on the radio frequency front necessarily.
It seems like he's just looking for human,
right?
Human broadcasts of some kind.
But then, did not want to talk to Carol.
No.
On the phone. So
very confusing from that perspective.
And then wrote Carol is Turkish ? In his book, and I don't know if her bad, shitty American Spanish sounded somewhat Turkish to him or whatever. Anyway, I thought that was really funny.
I thought it was a mishearing of her last name, basically.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
You're right.
So he thought, he misunderstood what she was trying to articulate because, her Spanish is wanting, to say the least.
That's right. Okay. Meanwhile, back in Albuquerque, Carol, still blood spattered, walking around outside the hospital, gets into a car.
Yep.
It's crashed. It reeks. It's playing Genie in a Bottle. And she's like...
A glitched out Genie in a Bottle, which is...
tough. Something they talked about the official pod is that Carol was like, no, even I, a desperate person, am not desperate enough for this car, which smells bad. So she takes the cop car.
Not my pick.
What are you picking?
Anything else, frankly. I think in this moment, you're either going for practicality, the truck or the SUV or whatever's going to help you haul stuff that you need to haul, or whatever the car of your dreams is. I don't have one of those personally, but I'm not going for the cop car with 24/7 Zosha, intercom access.
You don't have a dream car? You don't have a car that you like?
I'm just not a car guy.
You are not a car guy. That's true.
Distinctly not a car guy.
Interesting. You have like a very normal car. Okay. Interesting.
See, that sounded bad. That sounded meh like bad. You know?
No, just a
okay like meh. Or what was the Helen expression?
No, I just mean you have like a normal person car, not like you're not like, I don't know. That's what I think of when I think you have like a very normal person car, which I think is a compliment. You're not like trying to impress anyone with your car. Does that make sense?
You, on the other hand, Alfa Romeo. I've seen you roll up. I've seen you turn heads. This is just who you are, Joe.
Cherry red with a sort of like glossy finish. Yeah, absolutely. No. I also don't think I have like a dream car. LickingTheDonut@gmail.com if you're like, what car would I steal given the chance? I kind of like the idea of taking the cop car though, because it's just sort of like, I don't know, it's illicit. It's illicit to get, even more illicit than just taking any old car is to taking a cop car and driving it around. You know what I mean?
It also kind of fits the like Carol as Karen taking it upon herself to serve and protect the entire planet.
Sure.
Subtext of all this for sure.
Okay, so she rolls it back home. There's a cleaning crew here. I have some fun facts for you. Not only is a recent Emmy winner Jeff Hiller here, and we'll talk about him in a second. Great. Love to see him. Love him and Somebody Somewhere. That's the real mayor of Albuquerque.
Is it really?
Yeah, Tim Keller, the real mayor of Albuquerque, sweeping up in front of Carol's house. So they got the Albuquerque mayor, and I thought he was
Vince
great.
Gilligan calls the real mayor of Albuquerque, you do answer.
Yeah, he's like, thanks for injecting so much money into our.
This man is a job creator.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what really stood out to me in this outside the house moment. Who gave you permission to be in my house? You did when you were riding the ambulance. You sort of nodded absently. So it's a give them a damn inch. They will take a mile sort of reveal about the hive mind. What do you think about that?
I mean, it was a hilarious exchange and kind of recollection of events, but you're absolutely right. It is a give an inch, take a mile situation. It's also still a talk to Carol like she's a child situation, whether it's the people outside, whether it's Zosha talking about even later in this episode, she's like, do you like your police car? Like, do you like this new toy that you have?
Yeah.
There is an infantilization of this person who is one of the few unlicked left on the planet. And that is kind of what a parent does, is like the tacit understanding of like, oh, I can do this because I am looking out for what's best for you. That's kind of the subtext. All that to me is not just like, oh, you nodded silently when you were panicked. It's like, they believe so firmly and squarely in their mission
that they know what's right for her,
that they know that what's right, even if that is a biological imperative telling them to believe it, that there's really no wiggle room on it.
I'd like to note for the record that you just used unlicked casually and perfectly in a sentence. So
thank you.
Welcome, Rob. Okay. All right. Freeze frame Mahoney. Wakaro 5 notes on the whiteboard. What would you like to highlight here before we get to the sort of other notes that she puts on the whiteboard?
There's so many things. There's also so many things I wish were just a little more legible.
I agree.
Like there's a bit about the commercialization of the IRL spice trade that I'm like, I really wish I could make out exactly what she's saying here. First of all, I want to say this whole whiteboard setup, very jealous. I would love to have this in my home office.
I would die to have this. It's
Come on.
Beautiful. Like functional to have the sliding whiteboards. You could do that anywhere, but the glorious wood inlay with the handle, really nice.
Look, that Waikaro money spends. It really goes a long way.
So.
Makes a lot of people very happy, and you can see why based on the contents of this whiteboard. I am most tickled by the fact that Carol so desperately wants to kill Raban and is looking for any permission to do it, including from her whiteboard, effectively.
Raban dies again? This time for real? But then ask Val, right? Like, am I allowed to do this?
Can I kill him? Am I allowed to do it?
Yeah.
My favorite plot note or kind of like lore note that she has flagged is the Mandovia spice fruit. And she's wondering, is it a poison? Is it elixir? Double underlined, it's got to be a love potion. What else simply could it be, Joe?
Definitely a love potion. Love this. I will add, it just says Battle of Wits at one point. Yes. Near
it's
the
really
sort of
the
like
little things.
Cliffs of Chartreuse, and underneath that Battle of Wits. And then my favorite is just sort of like scrawled on the side. It just says Shakespeare reference.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I love that about Carol because she thinks she's so much smarter than the book she's writing, but she's like, I'm going to put a Shakespeare reference in it. Nobody's going to get it because these dummies who read my book don't know Shakespeare, etc., which we will obviously get to in a second.
But look, she's a literary woman. She did reread 12th Night in order to prepare to write this book. So props to her. I also think we may have missed the boat. Licking the Donut is maybe our greatest email of all time, but Killer Sand Flea Men would not have been a bad alternative.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. Our listener Ren wrote in about this idea of like why Carol specifically might be a person who is so resistant to the pleasant, can we give you everything you want nature of the hive mind. And it's because she has such disdain, partially maybe connected to the way in which she has so much disdain for her readers. She is someone who has been crafting the perfect meal under a cloche for her. This is exactly what you want. You want exactly a lady who looks just like this. I know what smut you want. I know what, flea men you want. I know what elixirs you want, et cetera.
They want to devour that space pirate. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And so this idea of like, am I just they're to your infantilizing point that you keep rightly bringing up, are they treating me like one of my readers who I like think so poorly of?
Yes.
And I thought that was a really interesting connection from our listener.
I love that take. I also love the beat as Carol is kind of deciding before she, goes to write her list of what she actually knows about the hive mind here. Like she kind of thinks about erasing her Winds of Waikaro prep for a second, and then opts for the new whiteboard instead. And so from the perspective of what you're just talking about, Joe, like she hates these books and she resents the people who love them. She has been miserable for who knows how long, and yet even when the world is like kind of over, she's still clinging to a life that made her so miserable, or at least clinging to the idea that it could go back to a version of normal, I guess.
But I mean, one does not simply think of the cliffs of Chartreuse every day, Rob. You have to keep those golden ideas, steady. But yeah, what Ren wrote, ultimately she would just be a slop consumer to be placated with slop, with the hive mind fully aware of exactly what flavor of slop is most likely to please. And I was just like, yep, okay, here we go. All right, so we slide over to the new whiteboard. These are the beats. What I know about them. Eager to please would give me an atom bomb. Can't kill, not a fly. Can't play faves like all jerks the same. So I think she's considering herself a jerk in that moment, obviously. Trying to change me, which I think is like so key and something that I think some people are like, why wouldn't you want to join? I'm just like, why would you let someone reprogram you? And we'll get to, of course, the conversion conversation later. And then really honest, which then turns into the sort of like can't lie moment. But,
again, a lot of assumptions here. Kind of taking these people at their word and just kind of inferring. I mean, I don't know. I just think maybe... I think they are resolute in their mission. I think there might be wiggle room around some of these things. Like, they can't kill not a fly, but they'll let almost 1 billion people incidentally die. Like, that feels like important context.
That's true. That's great. They are they have all the lawyers in the hive mind, so they know all the loopholes of the rules, et cetera, et cetera. Then we get this interaction. Emmy winner Jeff Hiller is here in a very tight bike costume. Larry to his friends, and they have this great back and forth. I loved this sequence, and what Carol is doing here. This is how Ray Seahorn described on the official pod. Is she's asking questions that she knows they know will displease her, but she suspects are true. I suspect that Helen doesn't like my book or doesn't respect my writing. I know they don't want to tell me that because they know it will upset me, but I think it's true. So where does the rubber meet the road in terms of like, don't want to upset Carol, have to tell the truth. And that is the sort of trap she sets for Larry here to try to figure out this particular quirk of the rules.
And that's the mode she's in the whole episode. It's kind of like Carol the scientist. It's a very different disposition from what we've seen of her, which is mostly like downing vodka and sleeping on her couch. But here she is like trying to understand more about what is in play, what can she do, what can she learn. And everything you said makes total sense and I think is represented in that performance. Like she's going into this deliberately with an objective. Joe, do you feel like when she hears Helen's thoughts about the Waikaro books and especially her novel, like to your point of what they said on the official pod, like she knows on some level what she's going to hear, but there's also the confirmation of actually hearing it. Do you think that actually hurts Carol in that moment, or do you think her expectations kind of steal her from that?
I think it hurts her. And I think it was interesting. Miriam Shore, who plays Helen, did sort of like a bonus episode of the official podcast this week. And most of it was just sort of like, what a pleasure to be here. But the most I thought insightful thing she said was that Helen was someone who protected Carol from being hurt. That Carol was someone who like walked around so easily hurt. And so her bitterness and her bad attitude are really this sort of like protective shell. And then it is Helen's job to sort of try to shield her, to sort of jolly her out of bad moods or all these other things. And so Helen saw herself as like, she's the softer hearted person, but she is Carol's first line of defense. And so she is like defenseless without Helen there. But I think Carol is, for all of her bitterness, for all of her cynicism, a very vulnerable person. Again, we get the conversion conversation. We get the sort of like truth serum self-tape moment, you know, where she says like, I'm not so bad, right? Like that aspect of it. So, you know, I think she's tremendously hurt by what she hears, even like, and you brought this up when last week when we were talking about like, what if you could hear what everyone truly thinks of you? And you and I were talking about what a nightmare it was.
Yes.
So this is something that you sort of called last week. And so, yeah, hearing it, it's different to suspect it than to hear it.
Totally.
You know? So
even when like, especially I would say Helen's thoughts on her, you know, the Winds of Waikaro series are not damning. Like this is probably what Carol in her heart of hearts at least thinks to some degree. At least it's represented that way in what she thinks of her readers.
Yeah.
But the novel is a different case. And like Bitter Chrysalis remains like an absolutely elite bad novel name. It is way too long for literally anyone to be writing a novel that much. But to your point about Helen as Carol's protector, I love that line about Helen and Val had kind of talked about the novel and decided like it wouldn't hurt her career and it just would make Carol happy to publish it.
And that's that infantilizing thing that you're talking about.
It is, for sure. And it's like that sentence and that sentiment alone is like, it is a caring thought, right? Like there's a germ of something there that is genuine and affectionate and like trying to be protective, but is protecting a person from something that they don't want to be protected from, which is their own creativity and expression and self. Like, how can you do that to someone even when you love them? And yet we do it to people we love all the time.
Did you think, as I saw that some people did, that it was like incredibly emotionally manipulative for Larry to bring up Moira, she of the crazy hats, who was, you know, like brought back to life by the Waikaro books? I actually found that really beautiful. I don't know. And like, I don't know that I would consider that manipulative. It was like him finding a truth, which is that like to someone, and we are all one, your book is the most important thing that has ever happened. And you're not Shakespeare. But there is value. And I don't know. I was thinking about this in terms of like, I've been thinking about this a lot as I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to talk about Wicked for Good on House of R this week.
Yeah.
Thinking about Wicked, my experience watching the first Wicked movie was I had like a pretty bad time watching it in the press screening. And then I went to a wide release with like an audience that loved it. And it actually changed my relationship to it. Superman, a movie that I kind of liked. And then I talked to my nephew about it and he loved it. And it changed my relationship to the new Superman movie. And that's okay. Like critics are supposed to form their opinions in a vacuum. We're not exactly precisely critics. And like, it's okay if your relationship to a piece of art changes based on how other people feel about it. And it's not like I'm dumbing myself down or anyone's dumbing themselves down or whatever. It's just sort of like when something matters to someone, when they find an emotional resonance in it, it can like bring it out for me. That happens with when I talk to Mallory all the time. It's just like she loves things so fiercely that it's quite infectious. So I just thought this was like a really interesting way to talk about, you know, art. Art can be art, even if you think it's not Shakespeare. It's art to someone, and I think that that's, I don't know, an interesting perspective. So
I also really enjoyed it as a way that the hive mind, you know, we talked last week, Joe, about like, is the hive mind capable of creating great art? And I think there's a lot of complications in that prospect. But this is about how the hive mind understands art. And maybe, you know, it can cite, you know, portions of the book that really resonated with other people and made them tingle and all that stuff. But ultimately, like what it is good at this stage in the story is not high emotional intelligence. It's like fact, right? Like this woman was in this situation, and your book, shitty as it might be, like gave her second thoughts before committing suicide. Like that is a real thing. And to be very clear, like more than validating the exercise of publishing or creating anything, like if you could create the worst book ever written and it saves someone from killing themselves, like that is a huge net win. in the grand scheme of the universe.
Exactly.
And so I'm pulled by that sort of sentimentality you're talking about, which I think is very real. And what an work of art means to one person or a small group of people is incredibly meaningful and resonant and not something you can easily write off. And I'm also, in the hive mind's portrayal of that, pulled in the opposite direction of the let people enjoy things kind of self-validation that exists in so much of our art and cultural moment right now. It's like a hop, skip, and a jump away from you're being a snob because you didn't love Fantastic Four. There is a lot of distance between these things, but they're all kind of connected.
I really agree. I am very torn about it. I'm of two minds because I don't agree that we should flatten all romantasy with Shakespeare. Of course I don't. You know what I mean? I think it matters that we say some things are smarter or better or whatever. But I also think it's you can enjoy Fantastic Four.
Yes.
But I can also say I didn't think Fantastic Four was very good, and
it was not very good.
It was not very good, Okay. And I wanted it to be good. Okay. So here we get Carol visiting Zosha. She's back at the hospital. We're at the hospital 3 times this week. This is when we get the sort of the conversion therapy conversation, the conversion camp conversation. I will say we had a listener, Mikhail, who called this out as a possibility.
Yeah.
In a previous email, and then just said the subtext has become text this week. Essentially. But this was a stunning, I thought, interaction between Carol and Zosha. What did you make of it?
I completely agree. And I think specifically the juxtaposition of these two camps, right? Of this smiling group of people who supposedly are well-meaning and have your best interests at heart and are fundamentally trying to fix you, right?
Yeah.
I think that's part of the thing with Carol too, is not just we want to bring you into our mold. It's as Zosha mentioned last week, you are drowning, right? You are drowning in your own life, and we have the solution. We have all the answers.
Right.
If you simply give everything you are over to us and never be a person ever again.
Right.
Where would someone like Carol have heard that before? Where would she have heard the idea that she is someone who needs to be fixed? Such a damning thing for certainly a teenager to hear, but also not a surprise that someone like Carol would carry it with her in every interaction that she would have for the rest of her life.
And I think that I was wondering about this. We got a lot of emails of people wondering why doesn't Carol have any family outside of Helen? And she might, but she might be completely no contact with them because they did this to her, right?
Yeah.
And then also I was so curious why in 2024, 2025, whenever this takes place, someone would be maybe this is just a privileged bubble of mine, but why someone who's in the arts would be in the bubble and in the closet that way. That's I was just sort of I know people are still in the closet, obviously, but it's just sort of what is stopping Carol, who is beloved in this space, and this is part of it. There are many other reasons, and I lickingthedonut@gmail.com if you thought that was the worst thing for me to say, but this particular trauma being something that would just make her so hesitant to let anyone know her truth, let her wider community know her truth, I think is, a very important piece of information for us to have. So,
well, let me ask you this, Joe. I don't know if you have any more information on this front than I do, but I wonder if there's something to the idea of being a romance or a romantasy author in that. That is I would say a line of work that lends itself more to pseudonyms and more to working names than almost any other line of fiction. Certainly, there is a level of remove that I think a lot of romance and romantasy authors want to have for various reasons. I wonder if there's would your audience read your hetero relationship with a space pirate in your book the same way if they knew the inner workings of your actual personal life? I don't know how protective people are of those things in that space.
Yeah, I mean, my experience in this sort of sci-fi fantasy genre space is that it is so queer friendly. At the same time, romantasy specifically right now also has a large conservative following, you know what I mean? And so I remember this specifically from Book Talk, when in our most recent presidential election there was this huge schism on the book side of TikTok where there were people who were sort of why would we ever bring politics into talking about books? And then other people were books are politics,
Excuse
so it's just
me, have you read a book?
So like I remember this sort of like, can't we just talk about our fairy smut without bringing politics into it? And I think maybe some of those people would not want to know that Carol is gay. I think that is possible, but
I got bad news though. The fairies are getting deported. If we literalize the metaphors, bad news for all of your favorite fairies.
It's true. Bad news for all of your favorite fairies. My favorite pull quote from this podcast. All right, so Carol goes into the pharmacy. I loved that. I mean, the whole heroin sequence is just like extremely funny. I don't know why she knows to look for the thiopentyl sodium. Perhaps because she has studied many a fictional elixir for her book.
It's true.
So she knows some things about how elixirs work.
Once you get into the inner workings of the spice trade, Jo, you learn a lot about recreational and medicinal drugs.
But okay, so here's the specifics that we learn about thiopentyl sodium. It doesn't say underneath truth serum, so that's not like what it's called. But induction agent for anesthesia. Okay, emergency management of seizures. Is this Chekhov's anti-seizure medication? Like, does having a syringe of thiopentyl sodium, could that save another millions of people dying if she like upsets Zosia again? Do you know what I mean?
But how are you going to distribute it to all the millions of people?
Well, it isn't stopping Zosia's seizure stopping everyone's seizure?
That's a great question. See, this is another case for Carol the scientist we need her to really dig into. We need her to yell at Zosia again, risking the fate of who knows how many people. Inject her again and see what happens.
This wasn't traumatic at all for her, so I'm sure she'll be right back on
Everyone
the case.
did great.
Everyone was fine. Anything you want to say about the pharmacy or about the dosage footage that we get?
I was a little underwhelmed by the dosage footage, I guess.
Tell me.
Obviously we do get these sort of character moments and some great lines. And I thought Carol reading from her own book in a bad British accent, like there's great stuff in there. Yeah. I think I was just like waiting for more of a reveal of something from any part of this, I guess, from Carol's dosing herself or eventually dosing Zosia. It's like, it's a lot of process and there's no payoff for it yet. And I'm open to the idea that maybe that payoff comes in episode 7 or whatever. But for now, it's just kind of like, okay, there's this truth serum and it's been administered to 2 different people. And the most telling information we've got is that Carol thinks Zosia is fuckable, which we already knew.
I don't know that everyone already knew, but like, yes. On the official podcast, Ray Seahorn talked about filming that sequence and how she had to like film all of it because they were just like scrubbing through, like they scrubbed through it. But like she had to film all of that like together. And one thing that they cut, like one of the things that she did that they just decided to zoom through was her singing Melissa Etheridge. And I'm like, release the Etheridge cut. Please.
What are you doing?
I beg of you. I think Listen, I'm Not That Bad was really a really good moment. I mean, like why they have to make her so fuckable is of course. And then Carol's reaction to seeing herself say that. It's almost like revelatory to like Carol can't hide from her intrusive thoughts when she has taped them for herself. But yeah, I just thought it's very funny. But I think you make a good point because then we get this like we're back at the hospital again and we get this whole sort of like after the Muzak in the elevator sequence outside. I would suggest...
That song has been stuck in my head nonstop. Well, it's the Christopher. It's not the Christopher Cross version, I don't think, but it's that like Best That You Can Do song from Arthur, and I'm like, it's just rolling up here. I don't know what it is about that bit of elevator music, but it really got me.
Are you a fan of elevator music in general? Hold music?
Apparently. I didn't know this about myself, but revelations abound for me and Carol both.
I love this. I think, do you like your cop car? As you say, is infantilizing. Sure. How was the heroin?
It's good.
It was really funny. Really good. But also, I will say, what we learned from the pharmacy interaction, like the fact that Carol did heroin sophomore year.
It was crazy.
But then he's like, it's been a while since you injected your, like, I don't know, like, what is Carol's, we've already talked about her substance abuse and sort of like her drinking and stuff like that. So like, what is her history with drugs? Like, what is, and again, we keep getting these like hints of the darkness in her past. Like sophomore year is tough. So I did some heroin is like not something I would say. I don't know.
No.
But
what were you up to sophomore year, Jo?
Not doing heroin.
One would hope.
I was working in
a movie theater.
That's what I was doing sophomore year.
I mean, that's the heroin of the soul.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's what got you hooked to be in this line of work now. You've been an addict for a long time.
It's true. It's true. It was the butter and the popcorn machine that did it, I think.
Now you're going to see fucking Tron Ares and just like, living it up.
Rob, you need to give the people all the information about me going to see Tron Ares this week. Which is that I went with some friends. We found a deserted theater. We heckled Tron Ares, and it was a great time. And you told me you thought that was a great idea.
I do think it's a great idea, but I am a fellow movie sicko, as are you. I also have a bit of breaking news for you, which is they were all deserted theaters. You could have gone to any of them for Tron Ares.
Actually, that's a lie. There were 4 people in our theater, but I
hope they were having a great time.
But they were having they were also talking through it. So the point is, we were not disturbing anyone, and our point was to like. I went with the same person I saw Morbius with, and we also heckled Morbius in a deserted theater. So I just think that like this is how you should consume a Jared Leto film. That's my personal opinion.
There's no doubt.
So.
We did talk, Joe. We talked a lot about the hive mind as potential AI.
Yeah.
And I think this heroin bit, which is really just kind of cover for her to get the needles, which is I think pretty clever on Carol's part.
Absolutely.
It reminded me we didn't talk enough about ultimately the hive mind here as like dark web concierge, like.
The heroin's 8 miles away.
there is a version, there's a group of emailers who are telling us about they want to race cars, they want to play golf courses. There is an unheard majority out there who have some really deep, dark shit they want to do. But I'm not inviting it. I'm just saying there is a brand of stuff that's out there and possibilities in this universe that people don't even want to touch in polite company.
I suggest you email licking the donut DOUGHNUT.
With all of your dark web fantasies.
With your dark web fantasies. I'm sure that person will love to have those in addition to all the other Pluribus emails they've been getting.
But before we go out of the hospital, though, Joe, I want to ask you about one thing. This like final sequence we get with Zosha and Carol in the hospital room where Zosha is telling her like, we have been you, but you haven't been us. And like, we know what it's like to be truly alone and to suffer. I mean, this sequence like really caught me. I think.
Tell me.
First of all, in a sort of like weaponized empathy kind of way, and also made me wonder like, is that something that the hive mind is even capable of? Like this group's emotional intelligence has been so spare to this point. Like there's a lot they miss in context in terms of the actual humanity behind the words and expressions people have. For one, like could a hive mind even practice the kind of understanding that it claims to hold over what it means to be alone? Is that something that they could even comprehend?
I would argue no. And I would, it's the same. I think that's the very same question we're asking about, like, can they create art? There is just something like deeply human that the flattening of, their experience they don't have access to that. But can they get there? Will Zosha, like what happens here at the end of this episode is extremely traumatic for Zosha, obviously.
Yes.
And for the people, I mean, it's a very scary sequence. Carol screaming like, back up, I have agency, but like not feeling confident that like this is a risk she's taking, right? Yeah, exactly. Something that they said on the official pod. So the person who comes through with the sort of machine to help Zosha at the very end of the episode, her name is Rosa Estrada, and this is the woman who, with that self-same machine, saved Bob Odenkirk's life on the set of Better Call Saul. If folks don't know, Bob Odenkirk had a very serious heart attack on the set of Better Call Saul. Ray Seahorn was there. And this woman, Rosa Estrada, and, I think like one of the ADs or something like that, like did chest compressions and worked on Bob and like brought him back. But it was very touch and go in that moment. So they wanted to like bring this woman in to like give her this moment. But they were also talking about how they want to be very sensitive to Ray in filming this sequence, and also when she was doing chest compressions on Helen, that like this is something that this person, a very traumatic thing that this person went through with a beloved co-star, Bob Odenkirk. So I thought that was really, I thought Ray Seahorn's performances are always really good, but like her terror and guilt and all the things that she's feeling and frustration of not even getting the answer, going through all of that and not even getting the answer, but coming close. seemingly coming close, I thought was like really upsetting. I take your point that like we did all this and we didn't get the information.
Which is fine, like from a plot perspective, just from the like condensing of an individual episode.
That makes sense.
Was this an episode of TV or was this part of a larger project? It felt like more like part of a larger project.
I thought it was really stunning. They talked about how everyone in the crowd is crying and they had to use like vitamin E oil on their faces or whatever because it was like crying at a rate that like you couldn't sustain as a human. And then like they're not smiling. So like to have this crowd just like standing around her not smiling, very scary. Very scary. So,
and really again, like listening to her directives, right? When Carol wants them to step back, they step back. When she wants them to let go, they let go. Yeah. But also sort of the like wall of sound as they're kind of chanting to her, which is not as you alluded to.
Carol,
the please Carol. And you talked about this in an earlier episode, Joe, where it's like it can't be fully in unison because there's kind of a weird, uncanny balance to all that. And so it ends up as it's just like overwhelming wave of sound and emotion and moment. And Racey Horn delivers as she always delivers.
Anything else you want to say about this sequence or the episode? Here's what I will say. We didn't spend as much time as I probably should have talking about Jeff Hiller's performance in this episode. But last week we had talked about like all the celebrity cameos we would like to see. And like we got some good suggestions. And I do think it's a really fun idea. But like thinking about Robert Bailey Jr., who showed up as the DHL delivery guy last week, and Jeff Hiller showing up here, like maybe I would actually prefer this. Let's find these like people who are, you know, Jeff didn't have his Emmy when they cast him in this. And I think before he won his Emmy, fewer people knew who he was, and people still might not know, and they should, who Jeff Hiller is. But like these people who have been around and doing great work, and let's just like let them show up and do like a gangbuster scene in an episode of Pluribus. You know what I mean?
Completely. And I think like the track record is there too for Gilligan in terms of you've seen what he can do with like Michael McKean. You know, it's like an actor of a certain repute and like success. And it's like, if you just want to come play for a little while, like we'll give you really fun and interesting stuff to do. We'll put you at this table opposite Ray Seahorn and you get to be kind of disarming and charming and also incredibly eerie and creepy at the same time. It's like there's a lot for, I think, character actors specifically to work with on a show like this that could be really fun for a lot of people.
And like how excited we'll be if like Jeff Hiller comes back in season, you know, and we're like, oh, like Larry's here again. Like he doesn't have to become a main character, but it'll like be fun to see these people again. They did talk on the official pod about like this idea that that Larry's been in that bike uniform like since the joining. Hasn't changed it. I don't know if that would smell great.
Do the unlicked shower?
That's a great question. They said,
or sorry, do the hive mind shower. I hope the unlicked shower.
Although Carol sometimes does it. Sometimes she doesn't. That this idea that they have no vanity, right? So like they don't care what they look like, unless they're trying to like appeal directly to Carol, I guess. But I have a question. Like, again, I'm just curious if they're all going to eventually wind up in like matching jumpsuits or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. So we'll see how the hive mind continues to hive. Anything else you want to talk about?
I will say if that's what ultimately happens, it might be appealing to Carol, who has been a leisure wear icon to this point. I was having a conversation with our guy Kai Grady at the office who pointed out her, to this point, several full body matching like sweatsuits that she has in incredible colors. And it's like, maybe if you just give Carol a nice pair of sweats, she would be down for all this. They just don't know the way to her heart, ultimately.
That what should be under the cloche is some nice leisure wear. I love that.
Absolutely.
That's a classic Kai Grady observation. Thank you to everyone for listening to this podcast. lickingthedonut@gmail.com. Please keep your emails coming. I know I keep saying there's a lot of them, but I do love reading them. So please keep sending them. Thank you to Donnie Beacham for his continued heroic Friday morning turnaround on these pods.
Always.
Just like really, really good. And to Justin Sayles, of course, for his work on the feed. Thank you to Rob Mahoney.
Thank you, Joe.
No thanks, I guess, to pigeons. Rob still is considers you his enemy. And
they can get lost. They're literal vermin.
We'll see you next week. Bye.